Today's guest is one of my favorite Broadway leading ladies. She's just stepped into her 11th show, taking over the role of Mother Superior in Sister Act. Please welcome Carolee Carmello. Hi.
Thank you.
How are you?
That's very kind.
Well, first of all, let me just say you look stunning. You really, it's morning, and you really pull it together.
Well, I was coming to see you. You know, I had to do something.
I see you on stage, but it's nice to see the real Carolee, this gorgeous lady in front of me. Because I mean, Mother Superior is not quite such a glamorous.
She's not glam. Yeah, yeah.
So how do you pull this together? What's the trick?
Caruso rollers, because my hair is straight as a stick. I picked things that didn't need to be ironed this morning because I spent the morning getting my kids off to school, and then I had no time to do any ironing. So I just pulled things that, you know, were out of the dryer.
This is mom glamour then.
Yeah, this is mom out of the carpool glamour. Yeah.
I got to see you just started performances in Sister Act on Saturday.
I did. You were my.
I saw it on Sunday.
On the
so
second
I was
day.
one of your first audience members.
Yes.
And it was incredible. I mean, I would have never known that you just started.
Oh, thanks.
How does it feel for you?
It's a really fun show, but I still am kind of, you know, unsettled yet. But I think I'm gonna have a really good time because it's a lovely company, and the show, as you saw, is just a lot of fun. I had never seen it. I was out in Seattle doing a show, and they called to see if I would be interested, and I said, sure. I've never seen the show, but it sounds like fun. And so I saw it when I came back to town, and it was a blast. So I'm enjoying it.
It really is. It's definitely one of those real crowd pleasers. I mean, the audience just gets so wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
What's it like to be on stage experiencing that?
It's great because, you know, this character, as you saw, is very sort of controlled and very elegant and very, you know, minimal with her sort of words and her movements. And so the bubble of enjoyment for me comes from seeing everybody else's reaction, because I don't get to be one of the nuns who, like, you know, jumps around and does the, you know, all the great choreography that's out there. I get to do a little bit at the very end. But
have you ever played a nun before? Was there any Sound of Music?
I did do Sound of Music when I was in college. It was my first paid job as an actor. I was in college up in the State University of New York in Albany,
right.
And where I was studying business administration, which
right.
I think I've probably told you in the past. But so I think it was my third year out there, and they were doing, across the street from the campus, there was this hotel that had a dinner theater. I mean, it was really low rent. But they were doing a production of The Sound of Music, and I had always seen that movie as a kid, and I thought, well, that would be fun, you know, not knowing anything. I had done
right.
a show in my dorm, you know, that was about the extent of my theatrical experience at that point. So I auditioned for it in the basement of the producer's house, and I ended up getting the part. I was 19 years old, and so that was my first nun. Of course, she was a postulant, but she was on her way to being a nun.
Did you have that amazing voice then? I mean, your voice, I can't imagine what it's like to be able to open your mouth and have these notes come out that you're able to do. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. But were you always able to sing?
I guess so. It never was something I thought about. You know, I never considered a career as a singer or in the theater. I don't think I really even knew that people made a living doing this.
Right.
You know, so I guess I sang, you know, I sang in high school choir, but actually I didn't sing in high school choir. I sang in middle school choir, and then my high school didn't really have a choir per se. I sang in the chorale in college, but it wasn't it was just for fun. It wasn't anything I really thought about, like, gee, I'm really good at this, you know.
And what did the Carmellos think when this showbiz thing sort of overtook you? First of all, you have an awesome name.
Thanks.
I mean, it's your real name.
It is my real name.
Carolee Carmello.
Yes, yes, it is.
I mean, it's kind of has like a music to it, right? I mean,
it kind of does, and I don't think they had any particular plan, but my mom's maiden name is Lee. So I think they wanted to get that in somewhere, and they went to high school with a girl named Carolee, and I think they thought it was a cool name, and it had a good, you know, flow to it with Carmello. But yeah, it's my real name.
Have you met the other Carolee, the inspiration? that they went to high school with?
Yes, I have.
You have met?
In fact, when I was, you were just asking me about the moment when they found out I was going to sort of abandon
Right.
my business degree
Right,
and become
right.
an actor. Well, at that very moment, I decided, well, I guess I have to move to New York to try this. That friend, Carolee, happened to live in Queens at the time, and she was willing to put me up for a few months in her house. So I stayed with her while I
Wow.
was like trying to, get.
You lived with
get myself.
Carolee.
I did.
That's amazing. So she sort of helped launch you. See that?
She totally did in more ways than one. So I think my parents, to answer your other question, I think they were probably shocked.
Yeah.
But they held their tongues and they, were supportive. And they've been totally supportive ever since. But I'm sure, when I was choosing between law school and getting my MBA or, whatever else I was thinking of, I always thought I'd be a personnel manager for IBM at this point. That was my goal. Then suddenly I did a summer stock production of They're Playing Our Song after my senior year of college. And I remember standing in my mother's living room having a conversation with the producer of that show up in Lake George, New York. And he was saying, well, if you come do this show this summer, you have to join Actors Equity. And I was saying, what does that mean? I don't know what that is. And he said, well, it's the union that the stage actors have to join. So it was that sort of, fork in the road where I went, professional actor, really? Well, I don't know. Well, okay, I'll try it. So, so after that summer was the sort of decision of, I guess I'll try it. But even at that point, I still felt like this is something I'm going to get out of my system. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to realize that it's, an uphill battle and there's no way to, really do what I want to do, which is, do shows on Broadway. It ain't going to happen. So I'll find that out in a year and I'll go back and get my MBA.
When you got here, you're living in Queens, you're taking the train in.
Oh my God, like 2 buses and a train.
That part of Queens.
Her house was all the way at the end of Flushing. So, I mean, it was baptism by fire. It was like, you want to live in New York? All right, here you go. You walk 10 blocks, you get on a bus, you switch to another bus, you take that to the end of the 7 line or whatever it was, and then you get into Times Square. And I used to carry, one of those giant bags and go to the equity calls at 7 in the morning and drag myself around all day. And, who knows why I did that.
We have a mutual friend, Michael Alassa.
Oh, God,
who you met way back then.
Yeah.
And I saw a video of you doing a really bawdy song and like a cabaret act about Port Authority bathrooms.
Yes, one of his original songs.
Yeah.
He was really one of those people that, you say like, well, who discovered you and who sort of, plucked you out and said, you have something. He was one of the first because I was just auditioning for everything and anything that was in backstage at that point in my life. And he was auditioning people to play this Cuban sort of club singer. And I read the description and I went, no, but okay, I'll go in. and he hired me, and it was just to do a reading of this show. But it was one of those lessons, and I always tell people who are starting the business now that even if you read a description and you think it's nothing like you, you really don't know what they're looking for. So you should go anyway. You should always audition for as many things as you can because you don't know what they have in mind. And even if they don't really think you're perfect for that, you might change their mind or you might be right for something else they're doing. And that's always the best advice that I can give to people. So anyway, Michael Alassa, or Alassa, he put together this like my one and only cabaret act at the Magic Pan. Do you remember when they had a cabaret space? You're probably too young to remember that.
I don't know that one.
The Magic Pan was on 7th Avenue, and it had like this cabaret room upstairs, which was kind of cool. And he really wanted me to do it. Michael did.
Yeah.
So I kind of let him sculpt it, and it was all his songs, and there have been many times since where people have said, why don't you put together, a club act? I'm like, nah. He did all the work, and that's the only way I would really want to do it.
Is that unappealing to you?
It's kind of unappealing, yeah. I mean, I really like book shows. I'm not a big fan of the, even Broadway shows that are reviews. I really don't like. I like the characters. I like the costumes. Just kind of standing there being me and singing.
Your greatest
know.
hits. You have a lot
I
of greatest
really love
hits.
this song, so I thought it just doesn't do anything for me.
You have a lot of great songs. Do you ever listen to yourself? I listen to you all the
No.
time.
No.
You know what I listen to all the time? Infinite Joy.
Oh God, I love
William
Bill Finn.
I recommend that one. That's a good one.
I just love him. I really do. I mean, I think his stuff is so brilliant, and he has that amazing ability to be completely touching emotionally, but funny at the same time, which is so hard to do. And I think that he's one of the best. That is a good song.
Falsettos was sort of your big, I think, breakout. I mean, that show should always be on Broadway, shouldn't it?
I know.
I mean,
was kind of thinking,
every once in a while, I just want to see Falsettos, and I just want to be able to go see it.
I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been a revival, actually.
Yeah, let's work on that.
Okay.
You can still play Trina.
Well, I do. She's the mother of a 13-year-old, and I do have a 10-year-old, so I
See?
guess it's still possible.
Totally. Let's get this going.
Okay.
Would you do it? Would you do it if we get the money
Sure.
together? Yeah, I want
I
Falsettos.
would totally do it.
How was
It's one of my favorite shows. It really is so well written.
Yeah, and you were one of the lesbians from next door originally.
I was.
And how was that experience?
It was such a great emotional experience, that whole time period, and what a great cast. And
What's been like the ultimate Carolee Carmello role so far for you on Broadway? Like what's if you were going to sort of put one in a time capsule?
probably Lucille Frank, I think, from Parade.
Parade, wow, yeah.
Yeah, because that was the first time I really created something from scratch. So Parade for me was that kind of moment of really being there from the ground up.
All the wasted time. Oh my God. I mean,
so good.
I remember seeing that show and not knowing what I thought of it, and then you sang that song with Brent Carver, and it was like just turning on the waterworks. I mean, that
Really?
that song made the whole show
Up to that
sort
moment,
of,
you weren't sure what you thought?
but emotionally, it was like, when you see something, you don't realize you're emotionally attached to it.
Yes.
Until
Yes.
like a really late point, and you're like, oh wow, the whole
Yes.
thing.
And then you're wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That show, were people just like losing it in the audience at that show?
Yes, actually, people afterwards would kind of sit in the house kind of stunned and sobbing and not be able to get up. Yeah, it was really, I mean, that's one of the great experiences of my theatrical life, but it's also one of the most frustrating because I really just wanted more people to be able to come, and it ended so quickly that it was a really frustrating thing for all of us.
You've been, if you look at your resume, you're incredibly busy. I mean, do you feel like you're one of these in-demand people? People like they call you in Seattle and say, we need a new Mother Superior, let's get Carolee Carmello. And you're on the top of people's lists. Do you feel wanted?
You think? Do I feel wanted? Not really. Actors always feel like they're never going to work again. I think that's sort of, I mean, I'm sure there are some actors in the world who feel like, oh, I could do any of those parts, and why don't they call me? But I've never been like that. I've never been somebody to walk out of an audition and go, I nailed it. I'm always like, oh, God, I could have, that B flat just wasn't. So no, I mean, I was so flattered that Jerry Zaks wanted me to come into Sister Act. I don't think that's ever happened to me in my 20 years in the business, where someone
offered something?
I'd never auditioned for it, I'd never seen it, I'd never been involved in any of the readings or whatever,
Right.
and to just get a call like that, it doesn't happen a lot. So no, I don't feel like that.
You obviously worked with him on the Addams Family.
I did. Yeah.
And how was the Addams Family? Because that was sort of, I mean, obviously the show is still running.
Yes.
It's sort of wrapping up. It's run a lot longer than maybe people thought it would. But it came in sort of as like, this is the next great musical. And then
You think? I thought it came in as people going, "Oh, this is coming in." We felt
Well,
we
there was
felt
not a
on
great
our
buzz.
way. No, there wasn't a great buzz.
But there was great buzz ahead of time.
Oh yeah. Suddenly, when we went to Chicago for the out-of-town tryout,
Right.
suddenly people were like, "This is the worst thing I've ever." We were like, "What? No, it's not. It's funny, and it's the Addams Family. Like, what?
Right.
Why are people hating it so much?" And the audiences weren't hating it.
Right. Well, that's why I wanted to ask you, because you've sort of seen this a lot of these shows where the audiences, I mean, Broadway's sort of in a
Yes.
changing time right now. So the critics wouldn't hail it as the next great musical.
Right.
But you saw audience after audience loving that show.
It's so confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I've been in a bunch of those shows. I mean, Mamma Mia, which I did for 4 years, is one of those shows that people go, ooh, Mamma Mia. You know, it's very like, critics didn't like it and it didn't do well at the Tonys and, but I mean, talk about an audience pleaser. That show, and I still don't quite understand what everyone goes crazy for, but they do. I mean, night after night after night, and for 10 years now, and all over the world, and the movie, so I think there's a real, sort of abyss between what the critics like and what the audiences really actually want to pay for.
Right.
So it's hard because you're on stage and you're kind of feeling like your peers and the kind of press are being very critical of whatever it is, in this instance, Addams Family, and yet here, night after night, we're seeing people having a great time. So what's the truth,
Yeah.
It's tough.
And you had a crazy breakdown at the end of Act 1 in that show, which was amazing.
It was fun.
Yeah. Did you have fun?
I did.
Did Jackie Hoffman behave? Any troubles with that one?
Oh my God. She doesn't behave, but that's what makes her incredibly entertaining, doesn't it? There was this one moment at that big dinner scene that you're talking about where I had the, poison, whatever, the potion, that she was allowed to sort of do a little tiny ad lib. And man, there were some days where the entire table was just going. I remember one night in Chicago when we were doing the pre-Broadway run, I think it was the loudest, most explosive laugh I've ever heard in my entire life in the theater. It was New Year's Eve, and she said, oh, it's, that's a terrible impression of Jackie. I'm sorry, Jackie, wherever you are, but this is,
She's
with
at the
love.
LaFontaine.
So she came back to her seat at the table and she said, it's New Year's Eve, and New Year's Eve, what am I gonna do? I gotta go up to my room and get me some Dick Clark. That's what I need tonight. I need some Dick Clark. And I mean, none of us could speak for a good 4 minutes, and the audience just, fell out of their seats.
I want to ask you about Saving Amy, which is Kathie Lee Gifford's musical that you've done a few productions. You just did one in Seattle. You're sort of like Kathie Lee Gifford's muse, I feel like right? She writes songs. She loves you. I mean, Kathie Lee Gifford's obsessed with you. I mean, we all are, but she seems really obsessed with you.
Well,
how does that feel?
It's great because she's so passionate.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've talked to her. She's nothing if not determined and passionate, and if she loves something, she's over the top in love with it, which is great. I don't know if I was her muse because she had written this show before I came on board.
What do you think of the Saturday Night Live impersonations of Kathie Lee Gifford with her Chardonnay, with the wine and the Pinot Gris?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
She's really
Have you had
brilliant.
Have you had any white
Glasses of wine with her?
Lady white wine moments?
Yeah, we were in Seattle for weeks. We definitely, every lunch we had white wine. Every dinner we had white wine. There's a lot of white wine wherever Kathie goes.
So they're nailing it on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
basically.
pretty much. And she laughs at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
she has a good sense of
thinks
humor about
yeah,
herself.
she does.
Yeah.
She really does.
Yeah, so maybe someday it'll come to New York. What do you think?
I hope so because, it's one of those roles of a lifetime that, I don't know that there'll ever be another part that allows me to do as much as that show does. So it would be nice to get to do it in New York. That's why I keep doing all these productions and readings and workshops in hopes that will happen someday. We'll see.
So how old are your kids now?
My daughter just started to drive.
Wow, how's that?
She's 16. That's great, actually. She's really responsible, and she's a great kid. And my son is 10. He's in 5th grade. And his hair is almost as long as mine right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. Probably not styled as nicely.
I try to brush it in the morning. In fact, I tried to brush it today, and he was like, "Mom, Mom!" And this is his great line. He's got a good sense of humor. I'm brushing, and he goes, "Don't make me look like I'm going to a bar mitzvah." And I look at him, I think, first of all, where did that come from? You've never been to a bar mitzvah in your life, I don't think.
Falsettos, probably.
Maybe, yeah.
Falsettos at an early age.
Yeah. apparently.
So,
In utero.
What do they think about you being a nun?
Well, they haven't seen the show yet.
Okay.
They're going to actually see it this week. They haven't really seen me in costume, although I just on Sunday, the day that you came to the show, there was this press event / race in Central Park that you probably weren't aware of it, but they were doing a fundraiser race in Central Park called Race to Deliver or something. It was a fundraiser for God's Love We Deliver, and they were inviting all these people to dress as a nun and run the race. And it was being sponsored in part by Sister Act. So I thought, oh, this is a perfect combination. I'll do, something for Sister Act and something for New York Roadrunners, and not realizing at the time that I'd be in the middle of a 5-show weekend.
Yeah, so I can't figure out how that would work.
So at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, I got up to go do this race. In a nun, Halloween costume from Party City, because that was like the gimmick. So I come home from the race, exhausted and getting ready for 2 shows, and I walk into my daughter's room in this getup, and she was on her bed, on her computer like a jaded, teenager, like whatever. And she looks up and she was like, so I think that she was like, "You ran the race in that?" Yes. So she's as embarrassed as she could ever be of her mother. But
well, you live to make them embarrassed, right? A little bit.
I think that's my job right now. I kind of think that's what I have to do. Yeah.
Well, you are incredible in Sister Act, as always.
Oh, thanks.
And my parents loved it as well, and I think that everyone should check it out.
Despite their
they didn't know they were
hesitations.
gonna like Sister Act, and they flipped out. They
It's
loved
really
it.
good. People should come
it's a
because
great show.
It's such a fun show, and you don't really expect it to be as fun and as touching as it is.
Yeah.
So check it out.
And you're adding a lot to that.
You think?
Yeah, you're wonderful.
The fun or the touching?
Both, fun and touch. You're touching, and then you're fun.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. It's so great to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.